That's not true. Okay, so before I get started, I have to address the fact that I look like a giant next to my grandma. I am a normal-sized human being. I'm just much taller than her, and I don't know how to do this. This is the first time recording in person. I'm very excited to have my grandma on today. This is Catherine Galup. I'll turn it over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm Catherine Galup. I'm Anthony's grandmother. I love him very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'm an old lady. I'm 87 years old. I can't believe it, but it happens.
Yeah. You're not an old lady, though. You're still very independent. And in my mind, I know we talked about this before. In my mind, you've been 60 for almost 30 years now. So I don't feel like you've gotten older. I didn't tell you much about this, but this is a podcast that I'm doing now. And the idea is to learn from people. So I've interviewed a couple of family members. I interviewed Alan.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm going to be interviewing more. I interviewed colleagues of mine. I interviewed friends. But the idea is it's called If I Knew Then. And so if I knew then what I know now, would I approach things differently? Or what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self? Or in this case, maybe you'd give me, knowing what you know now. But before we get there, I want to ask you a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay.
So can you tell me a little bit about like where you grew up, what your life was like growing up?
I grew up in South Philly on Cross Street.
Yep. 10th and Cross, right?
Yeah, 10th and Cross. And there wasn't much when I was a child, you know. You didn't have much in South Philly. But I always used to help my mother do things for her. And that was it.
I don't know that we've ever spoken about the work that you did.
Oh, when I worked?
Yeah, when you were younger.
Oh, yeah.
So you said you worked for a...
Vocal Rit.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked for Vocal Rit.
And what did you do there?
I was, I used to have to schedule the men that go out to work. I forget what you call servicemen.
Okay.
I used to have to schedule them.
And this was an exterminator company, right?
Yeah, it was an exterminating company. And they knew I was afraid of bugs.
Okay.
So one day, I forget, 2 or 3 of them called me in their room. And they said, Catherine, come here. We want to show you something. This is stupid me. They wanted to show me something on a magnifying glass. I should have known. I'm going to see it much bigger, right? I go in there. I go to see it. I see these big water bugs. What I said, I slid back with my chair. I'm so afraid of all things, And when I first started working, we were on 22nd and Chestnut. And they left there and they went to 48th and Chestnut.
Oh, wow.
And they opened up an office there.
How did you get there?
I used to take 2 trolleys, or else Poppy Dick would pick me up and take me. And he would take me to work every morning. He was great to me. I said, so anyway, when I first got the job, I walked in with Sam Ritt. And he was the owner, and he was a Vocal Rit, and then they had Terminex too. They thought I was related to him. They thought I was his relative, and he was taking me in for the job. Where I had gotten the job in Hallahan, where I went to Hallahan in school. And so you go in, and he gave me the job. So anyway, I worked there, and then...
And you said, how long did you work there for?
Well, I don't remember. I know that I quit when... I was well into my pregnancy, so
a few years.
A few years.
Did you like what you did there?
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. Yeah, and I liked the girls and whatnot. The only thing is, my boss, he came from where? Boston? I don't know, but his words were all bumbled up. I said, "Oh my God, I can't understand this guy."
Okay, so
and I used to have to take his notes down in shorthand. I don't remember my shorthand now. I think I remember one little thing that says "with." I don't think they have shorthand anymore. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
No. Well, anyway, and I liked it there.
So you started to work at this place, and did you think that you were going to work there long term, or did you always know that you wanted to raise children?
I always knew I wanted to raise children.
Okay.
But I figured I would work there as long as I could.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I know sometimes I feel like some people were forced to do that, but I know...
Yeah, it didn't matter to me.
And you also took care of, you glossed over this too, but I know you took care of your parents.
Yes, I did.
I want to learn a little bit more about the work that you did and the transition that you made and what it was like. So because basically you became a full-time caretaker of your parents.
Yeah.
I know your mother had health problems.
Yeah, very bad health problems. And 9 years before she died, she had a massive heart attack.
Okay.
And so I had to take care of her really a lot.
And that was, how many were all 3 of...
Yeah, I had
your girls born?
Yeah, the girls were born. They were in school. Yeah, they were older.
They were older. Okay.
Yeah, I had to be there all the time, you know. So anyway, I took care of her a lot. She had mental illness, first of all. That was the worst. It was the worst. Raising my girls with her with mental illness, it was terrible. It was really terrible. But then when she had the massive heart attack, her mental illness wasn't as bad as it was before that. And so with the heart attack, I had to make sure she had the medicines right and whatnot. And then she wound up in the intensive care. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 times. She would come out. She was a strong person. She would come out, all of it. She would come out of it. And then at first, I used to work when she was real sick before I had the children. And I used to try to amuse her before I would go because I never knew what I was going to find when I got home. And my father was some kind of a saint because he put up with it all the time. And I always said, you know what? I said, remember Pop, Daddy couldn't hear out of one ear. His eardrum was
Poppy Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
He couldn't hear. So I said, maybe the Lord made him like that, so this way you didn't have to hear him hollering.
And you took care of him too, right?
When he got sick. He really got sick. It was difficult. Anyway.
And you, so also you raised your children before you moved up to the Northeast. Your house was 1,000 square feet.
Oh yeah, I never realized how small it was. You know when I realized how
when you
small
saw my house?
No. We went to make settlement.
Okay.
And we had to buy this house. Oh, we were selling that house. So I was already in this house. And we went to make settlement. And something happened that day. And they said, you have to come back tomorrow. So I said to Poppy Dick, let's stop at the house. So he said, all right. So I opened the door to go in. And I said, oh my God, look how small this house is. I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And that's when I realized how small the house was. And I said, I can't believe it. And I raised 3 girls with 1 bathroom.
Yeah. Was it 2 or 3 bedrooms? It was 2, right?
No, it was 3
it was
bedrooms.
3?
Yeah. Okay. 3 bedrooms. It was a pain. It was a pain. And we only had 1 bathroom.
I know. We had 1 bathroom in our house in South Philly too.
It was terrible.
I moved into your neighborhood.
It was, and 3 girls.
Yeah. And then Uncle Rick was born too.
Yeah. And then he was born. Right.
So that you had a baby there too. They were older.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
You know, I told my mom that I was coming to interview you, and she told me about how you used to take care of your parents. And then also she said you used to make all their clothes.
Oh, I used to make them clothes. Yeah.
Because she said that you might.
Well, my mother was a very, very good seamstress. She used to make slip covers for the couches, and she'd make drapes to match. No patterns. She would do it. And so I used to see her just sewing on the sewing machine. But I never learned anything, but I did learn how to use her sewing machine, just by watching her. So I said, I'm going to make them. I think the first thing I made was either a coat for ink was going to a senior prom. That's it. It was in the winter. So I said, I'm going to buy a pattern. Oh, first I got a sewing machine. That's it. I bought a sewing machine. I said to Poppy Dick, I said, I would like to get a sewing machine. I'm going to go on the Avenue. That was good because we had the Avenue and they had a lot of stores there, not like they have now or restaurants. It was different stores. And they had Singer there. And I could buy a used sewing machine that was all fixed up. And it was good. It was like a portable machine. So I took that and I bought a pattern and I made her a brown velvet coat to go with her brown gown. It was beautiful. It came out beautiful. After that, I'm going to make the girls outfits. So I used to make them outfits, 3 of them. I used to make outfits. I used to make them. And then somebody said to me, you're making them velvet dresses? I said, yes, it was for Christmas. So they said, don't you know you have to have the velvet going all one way? I didn't know that, but guess what? I was fine. I found out then, but everything came out fine. It was good.
I know another thing that you used to do too was they used to manage the household finances. Oh, yeah. I remember that. When
I always wrote out the checks.
I remember all the bills you would balance.
Yeah, I would take care of them.
And I always knew you were good at math too, because I also remember that when I was you say no, but
no, I wasn't.
When I was a kid doing homework in this house,
you remember that?
I used to torture me.
Yes, I know.
You wouldn't let me use a calculator.
And I remember teaching you your times tables.
Yeah.
And you used to roll around on the chair out there, and I used to say to you, you have to know these for the rest of your life.
And I would do homework here. You would say, you can't use a calculator. And I was like, why, Grandma? We have a calculator.
But the one who was real good in math was Poppy Dick, because he would go and he'd go buy truckloads of stuff, go over to the truck and just look around in the truck and know how much to offer them because he knew how much it was worth.
Do you want to talk about his business?
That was his business. Well, see, he went from one thing to the other. what was he was working with? I forget the guy he was working with. He was he was a butcher. He was cutting all the meat and whatnot. And from there, I think he opened up his own business.
Yeah.
He opened up his own business, and
what was that business? It was a salvage business.
yeah, it was salvage, and he was doing good. He was doing real good. But then I don't know, because of all the trouble he had in the area, was he was then closed it up, and he went to work for, I forget their names. He went to work there, and they had a salvage business, and he ran it. He ran it. He used to buy truckloads of stuff for them, and he used to do everything for them. And then I don't remember what happened. If they went out of business, I don't remember it. And then he figured he'll open up the business like that, and he did. He did, and he was doing really good. He was doing really good. And then he used to help the girls when they were in college with all their different math. And he used to say, so I said, ask them, because I don't know how to do that. He said, they go over to him and he'd say, all right, I could tell you the answer, but I'm not going to do it the way you're doing it, you know, because he knew, but he would help them. He would help them. So they all went to him for the math like that. And he was
My mom's always been really good at math.
Yeah, your mother, yeah.
So I'm curious now. So I know that you, so the way that I look at it is your career was being a caretaker. I know you spent your entire life taking care of people, even as Poppy got older too. What would you say are the moments that you were most particularly proud of?
I think I'm proud of my children, having my children. Yeah. And I'm proud that I had enough sense to pick out my husband as my husband.
So then I'll ask you this then. I told you about the namesake being If I Knew Then. Knowing what you know now, basically, do you have a piece of advice for me that you'd give me for me to consider with raising my family? So whatever you want to say.
I already know how you teach them. Already know.
Thank you.
And I tell so many people how smart your little boy is. And I was talking to her and I said, I have a granddaughter that's 2 years old that dances like that. I said, but you have to see how smart my grandson is. I said, he just turned 5. I said, and I know why he's so smart, because my grandson teaches him constantly, all the time. I said, I'll tell you. I said, he knows how to, so she's listening to me. He counts to 10. And I said, Italian, French, English, and now your mother said Spanish. She said, she stayed there with her mouth open. She said, what? I said, yes. I said, and he hasn't even gone into kindergarten yet. Then I said to her, when this little girl, she was about 1.5 years, and I was sitting there, and they had me for dinner, and I was sitting next to her. And all of a sudden, he says to her, we're going to count. He said, 1, and she says, 2. And I said, I'll never, she was 1.5 years. I said, who knows, what child knows how to count 1.5 years? So I said, it's amazing. I said, he's a wonderful father.
Thank you.
And
very
his
much.
wife is such a sweetheart. I said, and they have these 2 wonderful little children. I said, they're very smart. I can't believe it. I said, and the little boy, he's a good little boy. The little girl is going to be a pepper. He said,
she is wild.
I'll never forget. One day, his wife was taking me. He picked me up. I was going to his house. And Anthony had the little girl. As they pulled into the driveway just before we came. And all of a sudden, Anthony takes her out. And she has a baseball cap on backwards, right? I said, oh my God, you look so cute. I said, you look so cute. I couldn't get over it. And Anthony said, she said that her mother didn't do her hair. Now she's only 2 years old and she's doing this. She didn't do her hair. And I said, so Anthony said, you want to wear a hat? And she said, yes. And she looked adorable with that little hat on backwards like that. She looked
so
adorable.
Funny. They both have such different personalities.
Oh, yeah, I know. And to watch her dance, it's amazing. She's
loves
going to be
music.
a dancer.
She loves music. I don't know. I think she's going to be I might need to watch out. I think she might be an MMA star. She might be beating people up. That's what I think.
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
I don't think so. And they're my great-grandchildren. Very proud of them. Very proud of them. I'm proud of all my grandchildren. All of you. You're all great.
Thank you.
You're great. So that's really my life. It's not nothing fancy or anything.
No, it's very interesting. Wait, you skipped. You told me that I'm doing a good job, but you didn't give me any advice. I'm curious about, go ahead.
I don't know what kind of advice.
I don't know that I need specific advice, but I guess what I'm asking is you've experienced a lot in your life. Is there anything that, knowing what you know now, would you maybe have done something differently? And if the answer is no, that's great. But I'm just curious around, I feel like as I go, I learn like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have worried too much about this or focused on this as the important thing. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
All I can tell you is that I kept after them all the time. There were no cell phones, but yet I was on them. And then my son came later, but I was the same way with him when he came. When they were young, I didn't want them going with anybody that I didn't think was too cool and any friends. I always said, no, you're not going there. You're not going there. And I wasn't with yes, didn't come out real easy. My first word was no. And I know it. But I just was on top of them. Called different places if they were there. I always was on top of them. I always was. And I think that's why they all turned out good. But you're doing a good job. Just make sure they're doing the right things like you always do. You always correct them and they listen, except for your little girl. Sometimes she doesn't want to listen. She's a little pepper. I love her. And you just keep after them. That's all. Where you don't want them to go, you don't let them go. Because that's how I was. That's how I was.
Anything else you want to share? I appreciate you taking the time to
I
do
think
this.
I told you so much. My life was long because I'm 87.
Do you want to talk about how much of your life you've dedicated to the Catholic Church?
Oh, how
long have you been a Eucharistic minister?
I've been up here 33 years, and I was 36 years. I've been a Eucharistic minister. I started going to church in the morning before I would go to school. I would go to the 6:30 Mass. I didn't make the whole Mass most of the time, but I got there so I can get communion. And that's really how I started. And then, of course, when I had the 3 girls, when they were real little, I couldn't do that. But as soon as I could, I was back to morning Mass. I went to Mass all the time.
So it started when you were young. Right?
Yeah.
Because as long as I've been alive, you went to Mass every day.
In fact, when I used to babysit you, your mother would take you to church sometimes, and I'd pick you up in church. Yeah. So anyway, and I always went to Mass. And then there were no Eucharistic ministers when I was real young.
Okay.
But then before I left South Philly, I was Eucharistic minister for 3 years there.
Can you explain what a Eucharistic minister is?
All you do is help distribute communion.
Yeah, but not just during Mass. You used to go to nursing homes.
I still have just 2 communion calls.
Okay.
But in South Philly, I had a bunch of them. I used to walk around and give communion to certain people. And that's
basically to people who can't make it to Mass.
Yes. Now, there were some people, because believe it or not, there were some people in those days that did not want to receive communion from a lay person. They wanted the priest. And basically, what we had Eucharistic ministers for was to help them out.
Yeah,
exactly. They couldn't go to everybody. Yeah. And so then I went all the time. So
sure.
Because I'm not a priest. So anyway.
Yeah, in my eyes, you basically are at this point.
No.
You've been a Eucharistic minister for 36 years, and to this day, you still go to Mass every day, and you help clean up the church.
Yeah.
You volunteer a lot of your time. Yeah, but you've dedicated a large portion of your life.
I feel like the church is my second home.
Yeah, I know.
That's how I feel. And I enjoy it there. So that's it. And I do anything to help them. That's all.
Yeah, I know. You dedicated a lot of your life.
So that's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I love you very much.
Oh, I love you too.
I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, I love you, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Love you.
Can you do me a favor? Can you look in the camera and say like, comment, and subscribe?
Like, comment?
Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. So to my grandson's channel. Say like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
You heard it. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Anthony. It was fun.